Well, for more, we can speak to Paul Taylor, a senior visiting fellow at the European Policy Center. Hello, and thank you for speaking to Paris Direct. Just wondering, what can European or any countries do to help secure the Strait of Hormuz?
Don't really have the capability to fight their way into the Strait of Hormuz. And even if they did, no ship owners would want their ships to be escorted under those circumstances. Once the fighting is over, and that will require not only the United States and Israel to stop their attacks on Iran, but also Iran to accept a ceasefire and to stop its retaliation against Gulf countries and their oil and gas infrastructure and shipping, and for Iran to agree that the Strait of Hormuz can be opened. Iran effectively does hold a veto over the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. At the moment, they're actually allowing a selective handful of tankers to go through, making them sail through Iranian territorial waters, and there are reports that ship owners are paying up to $2 million for safe passage. That's something, obviously, that Western countries would not want to accept as a system that the Iranians would put in place for duration.
We missed the very beginning of your first response there. Would reopening the Strait of Hormuz will require some sort of troops on the ground in Iran, or is there another way around that?
No, there's no need to have troops on the ground in Iran if there is an agreement with the Iranian authorities that are there after the war that Iran will no longer fire on shipping and will not obstruct. But if Iran wishes to continue blocking the strait, it has all sorts of means. The United States is currently heavily bombing the whole shoreline around on the Iranian side of the strait to try and destroy what they believe to be undercover caves where there are sea drones and ships and missiles stocked that could attack shipping in the Gulf. But it's unlikely that they'd be able to catch everything in this kind of bombing. And as we're seeing, the Iranians are being very effective with drones, and they have very large numbers of them, which cannot all be destroyed.
This operation, I think we all know, called Epic Fury, this joint U.S.-Israeli operation. I'm not sure if you saw the new Economist cover, Paul, the Economist cover this week, leading with Operation Blind Fury. What does it say that we're 3 weeks into this war and we still don't have a clear picture of what the objectives are for the Trump administration?
I think that to a degree, when you start a war, you have to know in your own mind what you seek to achieve, even if you don't necessarily telegraph it all in public. But it's not clear that the U.S. really knows in its own mind what the end state is that will lead it to declare victory and withdraw. Clearly, they have decapitated the Iranian leadership, but the regime remains in place and continues to function. It's a decentralized command system, which has allowed units to continue to operate and to cause severe damage, even though their commanders have been killed. And we are seeing that 3 weeks into the war, they're still able to target very accurately facilities in a lot of neighboring countries, and indeed as far as Israel. Now, the question of what President Trump considers to be an acceptable end to the war, he could at any stage say, as Prime Minister Netanyahu did yesterday, we have destroyed their nuclear capability and their ability to make enriched uranium. We have destroyed most of their missile launchers. We have destroyed most of their missile production facilities. And we have decapitated their leadership. And the way is now clear for Iranians to choose a better future. That, of course, it would be slightly false, but nevertheless, it would, I think, enable the president more or less wherever he wants to declare victory. And why he's not quite doing that yet is a bit of a mystery to me. But Clearly they feel that at least there are several more days of destroying Iranian capabilities, notably on the coastal line, all the way along the coastline route from the Strait of Hormuz further north, to make sure that Iran does not have much capability left to disrupt shipping after the war, if it chooses.
Yeah, and then we saw that meeting with Japan's prime minister and Donald Trump. That made for some moments of awkward viewing when he alluded to the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. But also, I mean, the question is, how do you pull in allies to get involved here? Because without a clear objective for the U.S., and why would they get bogged down in a long-term Middle East war? Japan, though, does not have a lot of leverage here. It gets about 95% of its crude oil supplies from the Gulf. It would want to ensure the safe supplies for its own domestic means. Can you see Japan? What can you see Japan offering here?
Well, I'm not an expert on the Japanese constitution, but clearly there are restrictions to what Japan can do in terms of deploying its navy far from Japan's shores in a conflict situation. Once again, the condition for anybody doing anything to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz is a cessation of hostilities, not just by the United States and Israel, but also by Iran. That will involve talking to Iran, talking to whatever authorities there are in charge in Iran at the end of the conflict. It will also, for the comfort, I think, and legal certainty of the nations that would get involved, getting a United Nations resolution mandating them in some way to open the strait. And so they have a firm legal basis for doing so. And that's what has been going on to some extent. There have been preliminary talks with the UN Secretary General at the EU summit yesterday. France in particular is active in trying to put together some kind of diplomacy on this. But all of this, and the British are involved in military planning along with the French for a possible naval task force. A number of countries have ships in the East Mediterranean that could reach the Gulf relatively rapidly if there were a cessation of hostilities. But I think it'll be weeks rather than days before any such thing is put in place. And again, it is really contingent on the war stopping soon and on the Iranian authorities accepting a ceasefire, because the other side has a voice too.
All right, Paul, thank you so much for your time. Paul Taylor joining us from Brussels. Thank you.